If you punch someone with a fist that has a bunch of teeth on it, are you actually biting them?
Yeah, I think that's what the autopsy would show.
Butterscotch Shenanijam.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 148 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, I'm the fixer of midnight errors.
I'm Sam and I'm the conqueror of squirrels.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is April 30th. 2018.
You always trick me up when you pronounce it correctly.
Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything could happen on this show.
Already?
What?
Yeah.
When the hell did that happen? Okay.
Hold on, I didn't get my profanity warning
go ahead,
in yet. Anything could happen on the show. There's going to be profanity.
Shit.
Fuck.
So
you got it in there right in the
if there's children, I didn't get to this part yet, though. If there's children, get them out.
It's implied.
Just get them the fuck out of here, okay? We flew off the rails. What happened in the studio last week? Well, Bscotch ID just showed up and punched us right in the mouth
last night.
Yeah, I was getting ready for bed. It was 9 o'clock. I was thinking, okay, I just need a new Kindle book, so I'm gonna go kind of look through my library and stuff. And all of a sudden, there's this flurry of messages on Discord, and Sam's screaming at me, and our monitors are screaming at me. And it turns out that Bscotch ID just sort of shat, and as a consequence,
all at once,
anybody who logged in every game, anybody who logged into any of our games between 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. when I fixed it, or who had been logged in and visited sort of the Bscotch ID lander thingy.
Admittedly, not a huge group of people.
It's not a huge subset, which is great. But for that subset, now anytime they go visit the Bscotch ID lander, meaning if they want to go into their settings, if they want to log in,
check on friends,
that kind of stuff, their game will just crash. And there's no way to fix it because the game can't fix it. Because the only way to fix it is to open up the lander and clear your cache.
But it crashes first.
Because it crashes first. so that just happened last night. But it was really frustrating because I was digging through it last night trying to track down the problem. Figured out what it was, and it basically all came down to just this stupid sequence of things that were being done, culminating in that the game itself doesn't actually check to make sure that the data it got was any good.
It's just legacy stuff.
So it's just legacy stuff. So it got whatever it got, and then it just said, "I'm cool. I'm going to display this.
Whatever this is, I'm gonna I'm gonna do what I can, which is die."
Yeah. So basically, it assumed that it had 4 different parts, but of course there weren't, and so that it tried to show the 4th part, and that doesn't exist, and that crashed the game.
My favorite part about this is the sort of sirens call because of our notification system, where the Bscotch ID button sort of has a little light flash on it, and of course people now are trained to click on those things whenever they happen. So there's just this flash, and if you are like a moth to the flame,
brings you to your death.
It would just destroy your game. So that was a big panicky moment because I think it happened like 9:30. And my favorite part about it is all of us also don't have notifications on basically on any of our devices, which means we actually have no effective means of signaling the team.
This is because our devices abuse us.
Yeah,
they don't notify us when important things happen. They just notify us when things happen, right? So we just have them turned off across the board, and then when the bat signal goes up, we're all just looking the other direction
every once in a while. But this isn't the fault of our alert system. This is the fault of a very fragile, shitty legacy tech system.
Just goes to show how we need to get Bscotch ID
out of there.
So
that was a good time. I had a great night.
But yeah, so it's fixed for all new users, and we're sending out a patch today and tomorrow to get it fixed for whoever got hit by it. So if you got hit by that, sorry about that.
Just don't go in there.
Just goes.
Although by the time you listen to this, it'll be probably addressed.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Otherwise, we have the Shenanijam, the Bscotch Shenanijam, coming June 8th.
Oh, that's soon.
It is about 5 or 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
So the Shenanijam is a worldwide game jam that we host through itch.io. They have a fantastic sort of game jam management system there. So we're hosting it at itch.io/jam/Bscotch2018. So Bscotch 2018. Do it.
Yes.
Even if we get a lot of comments from people in the Discord who express apprehension about whether they're ready for a game jam.
You can never be ready.
You can never be ready, or you're always ready.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't matter, right? This is a thing just to kind of push yourself. It's kind of like it's kind of like, you know, if you're running a race or swimming or whatever, where the thing that matters is just your own time. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about like beating the person next to you. It's all about improving yourself. Right. Mm-hmm. And so
it's very deep.
Yeah.
Race yourself. Race your own ghost. That's
right. And so if it's your first time doing it, this is the best time because it's going to be the worst thing you're ever going to make. Right. Which means
that only get better from here.
It's only going to get better. So the next jam you come to, you will have improved so much and you'll see these huge gains.
Never forget, you have to be bad before you can be less bad.
Yeah.
So just don't even worry about it. Just be bad. It's great.
So if you're nervous about it, then even grab a friend who also sucks. You know, just make a whole team.
Make a suck vortex.
A team of misfits.
A team of misfits who has no idea what they're doing and just take that weekend. It's a 48-hour long event. And then we also have the rule that you need to submit a YouTube video of your game for the end. So we'll send out some information about that. So whoever gets signed up through the itch website will.
How many people are signed up already?
145 or something, I think. I think it's 140.
100 something. That's pretty good.
Maybe 120. I can't remember. It's either 124 or 142.
Now that we're 6 weeks out, we probably need to start hounding people.
I guess we could tell.
Yeah, we're going to start really promoting it. So we've just kind of had the jam page up. And we've been just letting it accumulate. One thing we saw last year was that most of the participants joined the jam the day of the jam.
Yeah, 1 or 2 days before.
Yeah. So it was kind of, we were gaining 1 or 2 people a day for a couple months, and then all of a sudden it just skyrocketed at the end.
I bet I can make shenanijam.com point to the.
We should probably do
site.
that.
That's what I should do.
So try going there, see what happens.
Yeah, so if that doesn't work, then go to that really long, confusing thing Seth said earlier. I don't have any devices on me to record anything, though.
Yeah.
Also very amusing.
So somebody remember
that.
What are you guys on it? Right.
One of our listeners asked if we had the video from last year because we did a little kickoff sort of keynote thing about how to jam. And I went looking for it. I have no idea where it is. I thought it was on YouTube.
It's unlisted.
It's unlisted.
I couldn't find it.
It's in there.
It's probably buried amongst all of the.
I mean, I went looking. I went looking with a shovel.
Well, we got to make a new one anyway because it's a new year.
Yeah, it's a new year.
So we start the event with a little kickoff video that announces.
Well, we
themes.
may or may not because we want to leave our options open.
Yeah, we may or may not do all kinds of things.
Yeah. So one of the things that we may or may not do is kick it off with a video.
Yeah, we might also kick it off with a literal kickoff.
Yeah.
Where we take one of the games from last year and we put it onto a little tee and we just kick the shit out of it.
Just punt.
And it just flies.
But we won't take a video of it. We'll just tell you about it afterwards.
Yeah.
That's one of those radio broadcasts. You know, imagining is better than seeing.
Actually, what if we did that? What if we did a radio broadcast where we pretended to do all kinds of things that we weren't actually doing?
Be like, and now there's a tiger jumping through game jam hoops.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So we just describe it. Sounds like a fantastic auditory experience.
It can be. I've heard some pretty good auditory stories.
Also, speaking of fantastic experiences, we watched Infinity Wars.
It was fantastic.
Infinity War. It was just one. One in Infinity War.
I thought it was. I did think it was weird. I mean, I know it's owned by Disney, but I thought it was weird when Steamboat Willie.
Yeah, the crossovers got real fucking weird because I mean they were like we need to bring in everybody from the MCU, and I didn't realize that they have started folding, you know, Luke Skywalker and Steamboat Willie and like the whole Disney gang.
Yep.
Yeah.
But to be fair, his sort of noodly arms. Incredibly good.
Yeah, he's kind of like he's kind of like a Groot. He's kind of a Groot like.
The scene where Steamboat Willie and Groot have a fight to the death was pretty good. It was very heart wrenching, actually. It was.
Yeah. It was spectacular.
These are two of the most beloved characters in the Marvel universe.
Especially at that point, they had focused so much on both of their character arcs that you're in love with one of them. You know, I was more on the Steamboat Willie side. I know Adam was more on the Groot side. Yeah. So both of us were just weeping openly by the time.
Yeah, they don't tell you that coming in, like, because they really cleverly cut the trailer for Infinity War. You never see Steamboat Willie, and you don't realize that an hour and 45 minutes of Infinity War is just focusing on sort of Steamboat Willie's origin story.
And then everybody shows up. That's it. You know.
Yeah. And I also did not expect Steamboat Willie to strangle Thanos to death. That was
those lead pipe arms.
That was And it took like 8 minutes. I mean, it was a very drawn out.
Apparently his alien physiology, which I guess is something we haven't really considered, but he can hold his breath for a long time. So,
but he's also 2-dimensional because, of course, with all the stones that Thanos is accumulating, right? The idea is he can manipulate space and time, but Steamboat Willie doesn't live in that space. He lives in a 2D plane.
One of those. For starters, he's 2-dimensional.
Yeah,
those
stones can't affect him.
Yeah, which is another advantage because he has the thickness of 0 atoms, and so he can slice.
He can just cut people in half.
And it was a nightmarish scene. It was like something out of.
But that one scene where Thanos managed to convert Paper Mario into sort of a war machine.
Yeah, did not expect.
He and Steamboat Willie had to really go like into the.
Well, especially
2D
because
realm.
Disney already has so much IP. Why would they need to license something from a Nintendo?
But they did it anyway.
They did it anyway.
They were like crossover event of the century. They saw Ready Player One happen. They're like, we gotta get everything.
And then the Nintendo Switch came in.
And it's crazy.
That was something.
Seeing Thanos' huge hands hold a Joy-Con, that was one of the most.
And the scene when Thanos goes against Captain America and Donkey Kong in
Mario Kart.
No, what was that? The Squid People game.
Splatoon.
Yep.
Yeah,
Squid People.
Yeah, that was.
I was on the edge of my seat.
I
think again, there's still grip marks on the on the armrest.
Yeah, and that was a 2-hour sequence as well. I mean, it was a very long movie.
Yeah, we were there the whole day.
Yeah, multiple bathroom breaks.
It's spectacular though.
So, spoilers. We forgot to mention that. Anyway, so yeah, if you haven't seen it,
now you have. So don't worry about it.
Also, so we watched this, and Adam the whole time was like, this is great, but I wish I could see this with my real eyes.
Yeah. So then I went back in time using the green stone to last Friday.
Yeah.
So that I could. The goal was to be able to see Infinity War better, but I couldn't quite make the time travel work out in my favor. So then, but it was pretty close. So this coming Friday. I mean, I was only off by a few days.
You barely missed.
Yeah. This coming Friday, I'll be getting LASIK'd, so that now Sam and I both will have laser eyes.
And now I'm sitting here being like, oh, fuck. I guess I gotta. I can't be the last standing.
You gotta do it.
Ugh.
It's so good. I don't know why you're screaming about it.
It's gonna be something. But yeah, the whole experience of all of the your consultation stuff. Because they poked me in the eye a couple times. They put some strings in my eyes to make my eyes water. They did all kinds of stuff.
I didn't get the eye strings. You should go where I went. Apparently they didn't put ice.
I think the eye strings are how you know it's top notch.
I don't know, man.
It's that extra level of detail, that they
spare me.
They just really amped up the experience.
But it was really quite fine, actually.
They then took some pepper spray, I think, and they shot you just straight in the eye with some pepper spray just to see.
No, that's the post-op visit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's the day after.
Yeah, because they want to see, because then your eyes are really dry.
They got to see how resilient your eyes are.
Well, no, it's because your eyes get really dry after the procedure. And so to produce tears, they got to be a little more forceful.
So they just pepper spray.
Yeah.
Do they just do that kind of because they said there's like a 2-week recovery. So that just mean like for the next 2 weeks, they just drive by and pepper spray.
Well, no, you have pepper spray drops that you just
do it yourself.
Yeah. Every few hours.
So this sounds fine.
Yeah. This is great.
I'll think about it. Sam.
Yes.
Now that you can see, because you got LASIK, you've been seeing some shit that you've been tired of seeing.
Yeah. So
I'm segueing the fuck out of this.
Nice job.
Episode.
Very nice job. So
let's talk about this.
Here's the deal. Okay. So we go to the gym most days of the week. Usually after 6-ish hours of working straight, someone's blown a brain gasket. Okay. And the only way, as we know, to repair a brain gasket is you go throw heavy things around or run around a little bit.
It's to go blow a muscle gasket.
Exactly.
This is why children have recess.
Yeah.
And adults, for some reason, don't.
Adults are like, we're too old for this. And then
we're not paying you to run around and be happy.
So we take our recess break every day because we do whatever we want.
We take recess.
And when we're at recess,
just call it recess.
I'm there to have a very positive experience. I just want to lift. I want to, have fun, chat with you guys, chat with other random people. And there's this problem, which is there's this bank of TVs in the gym. And all the TVs do is just at least 3 of the 6 of them are news. And here's the thing. I don't care about, being
it's not
informed.
news.
Well, it's always breaking news somehow, but it's the 24-hour news networks. So whether it's CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News, I don't care which one it is. I actually don't have any discrimination against any 3 of them one of the 3 at this point, because the reality is that watching news is real bad for you.
They're entertainment products that sell you fear.
Yeah. And
sadness.
And there's actually been a bunch of psych studies about this, which all go to show, and I sort of compiled a list of them on Saturday, that watching even as much as 3 minutes of negative news in a day makes it basically, I think the mark that depending was 27% more likely to report at the end of your day that you've had an unhappy day.
Yeah. But it also makes you less informed than not watching it. Because if you read news that's curated, that comes out less frequently, you know, sort of a weekly thing or a morningly thing or whatever, versus staying on top of sort of the 24/7 cycle, you're more informed by reading less news.
Right. So, because essentially what oftentimes is being reported on is what people think about a particular thing that is
And they're
in
just
process.
wrong.
And usually they're wrong, so who cares? So, in other words, it is actually an entertainment product, but the weird kind where they aren't so much making you happy as they are sort of
Well, it's one of those ones that makes
striking
you
fear.
Well, they sell you emotions,
Yeah,
which
but
is
it
what
also-
entertainment products
But it makes
do.
you feel like you're accomplishing something by watching it.
It does.
You know? And so I think
because
that's
you're
just
staying
kind
quote unquote informed.
Right.
Because you're not watching cartoons like a child. You're
Who would
watching
do that?
adult,
Well, you should
adult
be.
stuff.
So here's the thing. When I've gone to the gym, there's been some times where I've watched, say, like an action movie while I was running, which if anybody's done this before, usually you will accidentally run much faster than you normally would under the same circumstances because you're kind of like,
But be
jazzed
careful
up.
watching Infinity War because you'll be running for 9 hours.
Yeah, it's a very long movie. But in this case, you know, I've been going to the gym enough where it's just been bothering me that every time we go, there's just all this, there's just shit on these screens, and it's just, you can't avoid it. And the crazy thing is, all of the treadmills also have their own TVs, which means that if I, as a person, am like, hey, I really want to be terrified today, I could just do that to myself, and that's fine. But we don't need to do it to the whole group, you know? People just sort of
and
bystanders.
it's everywhere. It's in the locker rooms.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
So
can't get away.
And actually, the locker rooms are divided into these little corridors, these little alleys, and every one has its own TV in it.
usually they're all in the news.
And I'm like, I can't even just wander around naked, which is what you do in locker rooms.
Yeah.
Without seeing the news.
It's horrible. So I've been practicing my assertiveness. Okay. This is like part of my thing this year. It's trying to get better at that. And so identified, okay, here's this problem. And normally this would be a thing where I would just be like, I guess this is my life and that's how it is. But I thought, okay, you know, this is a good place to practice. So I'm going to write a note to the gym and just sort of lay this out very nice way and essentially say, hey, you know, I'm a game designer and part of my job is to, you know, notice these things that affect people and find out where we can make people happy or whatever else. Your mission statement is to enrich people's lives. You have these TVs on. All the science shows that this is actively destroying people's mental sort of health, truly. So here's some suggestions as far as what you could do, right?
And you can't escape the TVs.
Yeah, they're there. They're just
They're positioned such that no matter where you go, you are looking at a TV.
So I looked up the CEO and I looked up like the director of the exercise facility. Emailed both of them with this little note. And it's very nicely worded, like not an angry note by any stretch. So I get this note back within a couple hours from the CEO, which was a fantastic response. And the long and the short of it was, and I felt so horrified for this person at the end because she said that exactly is something we've tried to do before for those exact reasons. But every time we've done it to any degree where we've been like, you can't watch the news cycles or you can't watch blah, or we're changing this channel permanently to this, there's been just a general revolt in the populace.
I'm sure.
Where people just, they get so pissed off about it that they have to change it back. So they changed the locker room one from CNN or MSNBC or whatever it was to HGTV, right? To just like, you get this goofy, some sort of home improvement
I hate
show.
that too.
I mean, who cares? But it's at least not negative.
But it's 50% ads, which is not actually a better experience than news.
It is actually. It definitely is a better experience than.
Is it? Okay.
Because the news also has the ads.
That's true.
Yeah.
All I know is I feel like I'm
ads
equally
mixed in with sadness.
Yeah, I think I'm equally enraged by both.
Right.
because of
But so
how-
apparently they did this, and she said they got so many complaints in such a short
have
window.
they tried playing Adventure Time?
But that'd be awesome. Here's the quote from it that just made me sad for this person. She said, and keep in mind, she directs this huge facility that does all this cool stuff. She said, the thing I've talked to members most about in the last couple years is the televisions.
Yeah, so just get rid of them.
That's what I was like.
Can we have an off day? We're just, hey, every Wednesday the TVs are all off.
Well, this is what I was wondering. So the question I have for you guys, because obviously this is a huge, weird design problem, right? Because how do you get the whole crew at the gym, the populace of the gym, to not revolt, but in some way also not have to watch cable news all the time? And there have been a few gyms who actually outlawed it. So there's one that's like a big chain. This happened actually earlier this year. I looked it up, where they just said we're blacklisting all of the you can't even like get to them on their TVs. You can't watch the news.
I used to go
it goes
to
against their mission statement.
Yeah, I used to go to Planet Fitness, and they always just play music videos.
Yeah, those are pretty fun.
Which I mean, it was cool because it gave me a. Here's the thing: I have no fucking idea what's happening in pop culture, right? So I don't know what the teens are doing, you know, because they're the ones who apparently drive this stuff. Because they're always looking for new hot albums, things that are hip, you know. And I never know what the hell's going on. So when I for the couple years that I went to Planet Fitness, I was very in the loop. You know, I knew all the hot new artists that were coming out, dropping tracks, all that shit. Now I don't. Now I'm just sad.
Yeah,
So-
but the thing is, it's a better experience when you go to the gym and you see, you know, people dancing around and stuff on the TVs
Yeah.
as opposed to just the general shit show of the worldly.
Yeah,
stuff
well,
happening.
it's celebrating physical health and
Yes.
stuff, you know, so which you don't normally see.
Yeah, so I didn't know if you guys had any ideas about, like, from a design standpoint, what to even do aside from burn it down was my next one.
Well,
I
here's
was
the thing-
if
here's
this
the
is
thing,
such a huge
though.
problem. Just destroy the
Yeah,
TVs.
what you do is you change the channels, people will revolt,
And you just
and you
don't
just
worry about
respond and you go, but no, though, you know?
Yeah.
And they'll go, well, fuck. And then they'll keep coming to the gym. Or they won't, but
it. If they're just there to watch TV, and actually there are a lot of like a stupid number of just old people at this gym that just like seem to sit there watching TV.
that's true.
So, you know, if that's what they're there for.
But there's TVs on the exercise bikes and on the treadmill.
I know.
And
That's
you
what I'm
can,
saying. You can
and you
just
can
watch
change
whichever
the
one you want.
channels.
Yeah.
You have your own personal
Yeah,
television.
that's what I'm saying. You can still watch it. Just not
Don't make
all the
everybody
rest of
else
us
watch it.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is something I'm thinking about now. So I got to figure it out.
No, I think you're right. It's a simple design problem. It's more of the problem of once you've given something to somebody,
it's
even
taken it away.
if it's bad for them, you can't take it away anymore because then they'll get mad. So you have to just be willing to piss them off, which
That one time.
that
a
one
lot.
time, and just ride it out, out the anger wave. Yeah, I don't know, man. I agree though. That's something that's always it's driven me crazy from day one. Walking in there and just being like, oh, I can't. And then you'll find those moments where if you're working out or something, you're resting in between sets, and because it's TV, it's these flashing, rapidly shifting
just find
images.
yourself looking at
All
it.
of a sudden, you just zombie staring at it, and you're like, how much time has passed? Where am I? What set am I on? It's not good.
And then suddenly you're hearing about the latest thing Trump did, and you're like, I want to package all that up and just see that once a week, you know?
I would
Just
like
have-
to not.
Just have a bad experience once a week and just leave it at that.
Yep. So, all right, well, let's get on to some questions.
I'll keep you posted if anything happens.
Yeah. I wouldn't hold my breath.
I would like to propose responding with requesting that there be some kind of an event, which is an off day for the TVs, where they actually turn it into an event.
Blackout Wednesdays.
Yeah, no, well, not even like a regular
Come to the
thing,
gym, work extra hard, and also you do.
but just say like, hey, this one day a month, even we're just going to turn all the TVs off, and it's just going to be just you in the gym,
Just you and your blood.
talking to people, you know. All right, let's go to some questions. These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. So if you'd like to get your question into a future episode, get over there and then do that. First question comes from Anonymous. Yo, bros of Game Make. Hey, Adam has recently talked about he and his wife playing video games together or simultaneously in the same room. Is this something you can each do with your wives, or did only Adam use his husband-mancy to brainwash his wife into thinking she enjoys it? Also, how do you feel about the concept of making games designed to make ladies want to play them? I love the podcast and games. Thank you for both. All right, so we have some things to unpack here.
I appreciate the love. This is an interesting question.
The framing of this question is enormously problematic. So that's what we gotta get into.
Let's get in there.
All right, so first
play it
part
back.
to address is the question of, did Adam use his husband-mancy to brainwash his wife into thinking she enjoys video games?
So no, my wife literally does enjoy video games, and
She's been a gamer as long as any of us.
Actually, longer
Longer,
than me. She's
probably.
better than me. She plays more games than I do, so she's far more of a gamer than I am. But the idea that I could have tricked her into believing that she likes games even though she doesn't, it's a little weird. I'm not really sure what purpose that rationale kind of generates, but in short, no. I mean, Jenny beats me at every game we play except for Nope. Every game we play, she's better than me at.
She beat the living shit out of 3 of us 3-on-1 in Super Smash Bros. Many,
she's
many
really good at
moons
Super Smash
ago,
Bros.
we went to visit Adam and Jenny in college.
Yeah.
And we just got.
She's probably rusty now.
I wanted to
'cause
leave
it's been a
afterward.
while.
I was like, I've been destroyed.
Well,
to
one of
my
our
core.
one of our friends in college actually stormed out of our house because he was so angry at getting beat. But I think it was actually because he had kind of the same sort of
she was
idea.
just laughing.
Yeah, because like she wasn't supposed to be as good because she was a woman, you know. And I think that was in his brain, and so then he just couldn't. His fragile ego and masculinity just imploded, and he couldn't be alive anymore.
Well, I think it's an interesting question because it suggests this idea that if, in particular, if a woman likes playing games, that it wasn't potentially arrived to at her own accord.
Yeah.
Right? It was some sort. It was
or
somehow
that
sort
it's
of
somehow fake or something.
right, or that if you're a partner of someone who doesn't actually play games, whether they're male or female, actually, that you have to sort of like manipulate them into it, right? Which I think it's always, and the thing is, we've seen this before. Quite a bit actually when it comes to people who just really like playing games and wanting to get someone who doesn't actually play games much into it, is for whatever reason there's oftentimes this feeling of like I need to somehow trick them into into getting addicted. Pokemon Go first as like the gateway drug and then get them into this thing. And I think speaking from my own experience, again, my wife's played games as long as I have. I think she played a lot of like The Sims and I think some Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the day. Those were her 2 games growing up. And the way we ended up playing games together was just that sort of thing where it's a passion of mine that I really wanted to have become a sort of passion of both of ours in at least sometimes. And because she doesn't like actually sitting down in front of screens. So that's the
Which
main
is
hurdle.
a very reasonable thing.
She
to
likes
follow.
running around out in the woods usually. She's like
She likes recess.
She likes recess. I'm more of a indoors coloring sort of
We
person.
gotta stay away from those fucking mosquitoes. You know?
And so the way we actually got it, the biggest one we got into was Terraria because it has a simple enough overall control scheme. And
you can just get right into it.
you can get right into it. And then on top of that, you can choose your level of danger that you get into, which I think for her was really important because
And you can choose your gameplay style. There's just
that's
all
what I
kinds
mean.
of stuff. you
Yeah,
can
because
do,
like I'm more of a I just want to go murder everything sort of person when I'm doing these games, and she doesn't like the adrenaline that comes from getting these huge fights. Or rather, she likes it afterward, but never during. There's a lot of screaming involved.
But this has nothing to do with her gender.
It's just her.
This is more that she just has she has a lot of adrenaline in general.
So and Adam and Seth could speak to this, is that anybody who's been around her knows that if you startle her, or if she just has an idea,
It's an
Well, she
experience.
startles herself with ideas.
yeah, she startles herself, and so there's a lot of screaming involved.
She's just a very active person.
Yeah, which is it's always very amusing. And I think that's the important note is that there's just it's the gender, the weird implications of the gender in this question is just I think off base because it's just the case that the question you should be asking is what sort of stuff does my partner like, and then what are some games that actually
games that
bring
have
that
that?
out in some interesting ways.
Yeah, and it's a natural thing to want to try to sort of bridge those ideas in a spousal situation or with a significant other where you've got something you like. They maybe even if they've never experienced it before, you want them to kind of experience that with you, you know. But you gotta recognize that in most cases, people just are their own person, and you can get them to sit down and try something new with you if they aren't into it, and maybe they'll like it, but probably they won't.
But even
they got their own things going on.
But even taking that out of it, taking all of it out of there, there's a huge number of just people who don't play games and have never played games, and I know a bunch of those people. And when you talk to them about if you say, hey, I want you to play this game with me that I got really excited about that I've just been playing. And they say, oh, well, I don't really even know how to use a controller. Yeah. Because they don't have a whole, it's actually,
there's a whole
crazy
language
complicated how it's crazy how complicated a controller is. And you don't know it if you kind of grow up on it. Yeah. It's got a whole bunch of buttons. It has all this really difficult hand-eye coordination.
It's like playing an instrument where if you see somebody playing the piano who's really good, and you're like, how the fuck do they even know where their fingers are supposed to go?
Someone who plays the piano doesn't just say like, hey, I really like playing the piano and I need like a partner for this, this
I need a duet.
fucking Mozart duet piece. Could you just hop in?
It matters. The piano matters a lot to me, and I want you to kind of share on the piano experience.
Yeah, just come play with me. Yeah, it's just not as easy as that. The hurdles are always higher than you think for people who aren't fluent in video games. And so if you're trying to bring somebody who doesn't play video games into the fold, don't come at it as, I'm trying to trick them into doing this thing. try to find, because there's infinite games. So try to find games that, because of, hopefully you know who your partner is, right? So you know what they're into, you know what kinds of things they like to do. Try to find games that kind of replicate that in some way, but most importantly, that have a soft entry in terms of difficulty of control schemes in particular, because games are not easy. No. And if you don't have a lifetime of doing it, it's a real struggle just to get into them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My wife loves puzzles, and she's a logic master. And I've seen her chew through Sudoku books, you know, like nothing, like a wood chipper, you know? And so she and I have sat down and played games like Myst. Right. But she just makes short work of them like nothing. I mean,
too easy.
I remember struggling with that game long when in my younger days. And she and I sat down with it, and she's like, "Is this it?" You know.
If you're trying to get somebody to be excited about a specific game, you know, that's where the struggle is, and that actually leads us into the next part of this question.
Yeah. So the next part of the question is, let's see, how do you feel about the concept of making games designed to make ladies want to play them?
Yeah, to me, the bigger problem here is that so many games are designed specifically to exclude women. They're not designed for men or for boys.
Right.
They're designed to exclude women, and as a consequence, they
with exclusionary aspects.
Exactly, with exclusionary aspects.
But I mean, the same thing applies to film, TV, you know, all these things.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at the fact that you know, as an example, the MCU, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe, they had now 18 films, 19 films, not a single one with a female lead.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty fucked up.
But hey, one's coming next year, so you know. Hey,
one's coming next.
One's 30 fucking movies.
One's coming next year. It's Captain Marvel, who is I think the most badass. Powerful.
Yeah, I was reading up on her this weekend. She's very OP.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to compensate by making the one woman that they do have able to just sort of one shot all the previous heroes without even breaking a sweat.
Right.
But it doesn't compensate, you know, and I think you see this. There's this big conversation about representation in games and movies and stuff, and this is why, you know, we made Flux, the main character of Crash Lands, we made her a woman, and there's actually a big reason why we tend to not even put humans in our games in general, because whoever you pick, you're going to be excluding everybody else as a human. And so that becomes difficult to manage. But I mean, there's a huge desire for people to feel like like their voices are being heard, like they're being represented. And I think Black Panther's just fucking,
it's been huge.
Speaks to this so loudly. Looking at the box office turnout, how many people came to watch that movie, you know, 5-6 times in theaters, because they're just like, finally, somebody fucking made a movie for me. Yeah, you know.
Yep. And I think that's the thing with the video game problem is that it's not about making lady games. It's about making games that don't necessarily exclude.
It's about making games that treat people as equals.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean like every game has to have a female protagonist. Correct. I mean, definitely a bunch should, right?
Well, roughly half of them should.
Roughly half.
That's about
if we're just
the population.
Exactly. But it does mean that then, you know, how women are portrayed in those games, whether it's a lead or other kinds of roles, just shouldn't be all these like gross, subservient, sex focused things that they mostly are in the games that are sort of quote unquote for men, right? But really, what those things do is they constantly portray women as non-equal beings. And then they create this entire generation of video games, people playing games and so on, of things that just actively exclude women from participating. And so then it should not be surprising at all that if you're sitting there playing, you know, Grand Theft Auto or something, you're like, why won't my wife love this game? You know, it's like
where I can choose between 3 different male protagonists and
then murder women. Right.
You know, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's because it's gross, and she shouldn't be pumped about that.
Well, I think the reality is it doesn't feel like it feels like a party you were never invited to, and in fact that you were pushed away from forever. So in short, for bringing somebody into the fold, find games that just don't do that. That actually that are for everybody, and again, that doesn't mean it has to be designed for ladies, whatever you think that means. You know, that's not even a concept that means anything or is important. The important thing is that it's not actively exclusionary. Yeah. And ideally that it includes some form of positive representation.
Yeah. And I mean, we've started to see a lot of cultural shifts, especially in the past 5 years. in much better directions, and there's a really long way to go for things to reach a good spot, I think.
But I will say that from a game design perspective from our side, it is something that we struggle with because we are 3 dudes and 3 white dudes specifically, that it's really easy just to kind of not think about that. You know, it's kind of the luxury we have in that position where we can kind of forget that we're dudes and forget that we're white.
Right.
And
Because
so
in all these movies, like it was like especially the MCU, it's just all white dudes. You know, like why is Peter Quill the captain in Guardians of the Galaxy? You know, like he's the least competent person that they have.
Absolutely.
It should be Gamora. Yep. She should be running the ship, you know? But you know, people, and of course, as like, if people watch these films as white dudes, then they see that and they're like, they don't think about it because they relate to the protagonist and they don't ask questions about it. And so we have to try to take it very seriously. To always be asking those questions.
So I think that's to kind of get at the last part of that question. That is like, what should you do for designing games? It's not about for women. It's about trying to remember who you are and who you're representing when you make stuff, and because for all of us, you know, our default person is a person who's like us. And so if you are another white dude making video games, then just by default, everything you think of is going to be a white dude, right? So you just have to be consciously, because that's who you are. So you have to be consciously aware of that. And this is so problematic in games and their industries because of the history of how things have happened, making it so that most people that are running things and building games and doing all of this are still white dudes, because it's taking so long to fix all these horrible things that we've done to each other. And so if you're not consciously thinking about it and taking great pains to acknowledge that fact and try to push away from it in some way, and be inclusive in the stuff that you make, like that's what you got to do. You don't have to design entirely new kinds of games, you know, that for the 4 women with a new, like a 4 women logo that's like pink now or some bullshit.
Cards Against Humanity had a hilarious for her pack. Oh yeah, they just made it pink. Yeah, but they did that as satire, and then they donated all the proceeds to women's organizations, which was fantastic.
So and I think if you're looking for sort of entry point games for this stuff, again, just mention to your partner that this is something that you'd like to sort of cultivate as a thing that both of you can do from time to time. My wife and I do basically one major gaming binge session around Thanksgiving every single year. Sometimes it's Terraria, sometimes it's something else, but we try to do one
or the
of
new
these.
Pokemon.
Or the new Pokemon.
Yep.
So those are the ones that we've really enjoyed playing together because they're just not divisive in any way. They're not exclusionary in any way. Pokemon's just, you pick your gender and then no one cares. No, you don't even talk. The story is so light that I don't even know if they could be offensive. I haven't seen anything.
And you can name your opponent, you know, Balls Face.
It's great. It's amazing. It
doesn't change the story at all somehow, which seems like that would be a problem for a person.
And remember, there's multiple levels of this, right? Because there's inclusive and there's exclusive, and then there's sort of neutral, not exclusive, right? And basically just stay on the left half of that, if you can. And I mean, it is very hard to make games that are truly like purposefully inclusive. Yeah. And I don't think everybody has to be doing that. I think what everybody has to be doing is purposely making games that aren't exclusive. And we can kind of just start moving things that way. And ideally, we get into the space where people have a better idea of how to make things that truly are inclusive. But again, that is a much harder problem. And as long as we just start away from the exclusive side, you know, that's good. That's progress.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I think. All right. Good. All right.
Got deep.
Yeah. This is something we have to always be, you know, wary of as we talk about because of our disposition, as Adam pointed out. So, but yeah, thanks for asking that question. It's a good question. All right. For our next question comes from CC Tech Wiz. Most esteemed gentlemen, as a software developer, I try to do code katas or code challenges. I don't know what this word is.
I don't know.
With some frequency to keep my skills sharp. In a not so recent-ish podcast, you mentioned a nifty little tool for practicing repetitive art stuff, like drawing circles. Are there any challenges you do for honing your general game design skills? Just jams.
Yeah, jams.
Yeah, game jams. You know, so there's this jam coming up. It's called the Shenanijam.
Oh, I haven't heard of this. This sounds cool.
It's coming on June 8th.
I bet if you go to Shenanijam.com, that may or may not go there.
It could. I bet that it may or may not. Jams are the best for us because there's something that happens when you're working on a long-term game project, which is that the problems that you solve become increasingly narrow and idiosyncratic. Yeah. Meaning very specific to that project.
Yeah, they're not necessarily going to be able to jump in an applicable way to some new project.
Yeah.
Right?
The best thing about jams is you're starting at the beginning.
And you have to solve all the problems.
You have to solve all the problems, which means, and people often ask us, how is it that we're able to do some of the things that we do in such a short time span in jams? And it's that we've done so many jams that we have a whole bunch of tools that we've built that allow us to almost instantaneously get a game off the ground. So we have a script library of like 500 something different scripts in GameMaker, as well as a whole bunch of built-in modules that we've created. And every time we do a jam, we go back and we kind of, in sort of vulture fashion, we salvage its guts.
And put them in the pack.
And we put them in the package. So anything that we've made during a game jam, we then carry it forward into the next game. To the point where we have this project that's just called the Prototype Template. And it is a huge suite of sort of baseline game functions that have things like, a main menu and a settings page and a gameplay page and a save system and all the stuff that, and like a pause button, because that's a thing you need. And just all these different things that every game needs, but that you would have to build from scratch every single time.
It's sort of it's the closest we get to building an engine, right? It's our sort of framework inside.
It's our own framework that sits on top of GameMaker. So by doing that kind of stuff,
Then you get a tight feedback loop.
You get tight feedback loop.
Focus on the ideas a little bit more so than the implementation, but still do.
Yeah.
And that's the other big part of it is that we're, and as you can probably tell by the podcast, from our ability to really just sort of rapidly build off each other's ideas and stuff, and then also just debate or get into arguments, really deep arguments very quickly, we can essentially mentally prototype a game in like a span of a couple of minutes and find sort of holes in it, as long as it's not an uber complex design, which those don't ever work in game jam context anyways, if it's 2-day jam. So this is actually one of the things that we were working on in a general sense, is actually making games that have a bit more going on the design side, because what it has taught us to do is we're very good at coming up with like the core thing, but then not necessarily so good at coming up with whatever the bunch of other sort of interesting subsystems are that might come off of that, because it's not something we actually do a lot. So that's something we have our eye on, and also something that some of the Crashlands updates are sort of designed to start kind of adding and fixing in that sort of context.
Yeah. We tend to just lean really hard into one specific system and build the whole game around it.
It works fine.
It works fine. But this has been an interesting conversation with Scuffle Buddies.
Yes.
Which came out of there's a game jam called the Shenanijam.
I've heard about this once before.
Yeah, which last year we built a game called Snuppy Rustlin', which is a game where you're a troll and you steal snails by summoning.
Well, they're snail puppies.
Snail puppies. You summon monsters and other trolls to steal snail puppies
from your enemies.
Enemies.
And we had a multiplayer server. Is it still up? I don't even know if it's.
The server is still running.
So you could actually get on there. You could download it, and we had a bunch of people after the Shenanijam who were playing. About 70 people.
I can't remember
were fighting in there.
How does matchmaking work? It's just if two people hit it.
Yeah, if two people are on, then it will. Point
you hit look for game, and then the next person who hits look for game, you just matched up.
What happens if there is no match? Does it just go into single player?
It'll just wait forever.
Okay, nice. I remember too. We were at the sort of the last moment. We had this question because I put it together on the server side, the ability to have matchmaking where you could like include a phrase or something, or would it give you like a key that you could use? And join.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got.
And that. We were 15 minutes away from implementing it, but we ran out.
Yeah, that one went all the way up to the wire. That was one of the few where it was not done until the jam was done.
But the reason for that is because we've done so much work in advance to take care of all the baseline game functions. We try to make sure that we're never solving the same problems twice in a sort of jam by jam. And so by salvaging all the old code and all the old stuff and making it more general, then we can come up with game ideas for a jam that are actually pretty involved.
Yes, that was by far. I mean, making a card game is hard. Making a multiplayer turn-based card game is harder still, and we did it in 48 hours, somewhat successfully. So I mean, people who got to fight each other had a really good time doing it. So if you want to do that, you can probably find someone on the Discord who will fight you in Snuppies. It still exists. It's still around. And that's actually that's the core of the Scuffle Buddies overall sort of gameplay system, is that particular gaming element. But going back to what you're saying, you said we're having some issues with that.
Yeah. So that's a very involved and what I would call dense.
It's
system.
Heavy. Yeah.
It's very heavy. It requires a lot of content to make it work. I think as of right now, where Scuffle Buddies is we've got 20 something unique sort of monsters you can summon. And then several dozen spells and items that you can deploy during the battle to try to manipulate that.
There's about
outcome.
54 or 55 sort of card concepts overall.
Yeah. So we have that, and our aim is to go, into the hundreds. And then on top of that, then there's that question of like, how do you acquire these cards? How do you acquire these monsters or whatever? And so we've been
Loot boxes.
So we're just going straight to loot boxes. We got to talk about that in a moment as well.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
It's a news item. And so as we've been designing the system, we've been experimenting with all kinds of things like, going out into the wilderness, crafting, like building traps and doing all this.
Well, I think that the major point here is that it's not impressive to build a turn-based card game nowadays, because especially if you're looking on mobile in particular, but even on PC now, it's like literally, Valve is doing it.
I know. And if they're doing it, they got nothing. They got no resources.
Dead genre. So far as so we wanted to add our own element, kind of like with Crashlands, we added the story to it, right? We wanted to take that sort of the rough idea of a card battling thing and sort of blow it out into this really cool world where you actually go, like, what if the basic question is, what if in like Hearthstone or something like that, you had to actually go somehow get the damn cards?
Or what if Hearthstone was actually just Diablo, but you play Diablo to find the card things, and then you go into some arena where you can battle.
That's a better example.
Then that would actually make me play both of those games, because I currently play neither of them.
Yeah, but this becomes a problem.
Because if the battle system is super intense and heavy, then just how heavy should that other part of the gameplay be?
Yeah, because if you think about so games like Final Fantasy, they often have a card game that you can play, or some kind of extra mini game.
Fallout New Vegas.
Final Fantasy X had Blitzball.
I love that.
Was
that the water ball thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so the problem here is like whichever one of these systems turns out to be sort of the most involved, that actually becomes what the game is, right? And so, and I think people can only hold so many different sort of game concepts in their brain at a time. And so if you have like, all right, we have this big open world where you're going out, you're exploring and you're crafting, and maybe like you're fighting things and you're riding zeppelins or whatever the fuck you're doing out there. And then you're doing all that so that you can sort of build this card deck. And then we have this entire other strategic card battling game with hundreds and hundreds of cards.
Where the matches are between 6 and like 20 minutes long if it's a really intense fight.
Yeah. And so the question is that too much? Is it just too fucking many things happening?
Because from our experience now, it seems like maybe it's too.
It's probably too much. And so now we gotta reel it back potentially. And this is actually an interesting sort of side note, which is, we started working on Scuffle Buddies. We got about 6 months in, and we're like, this is going to be huge. So we need to
step away.
We haven't published a game in 2 years. We need to get something else out that we can make much faster. So that's where Levelhead comes in. So we just wrapped up week 15 of dev on Levelhead.
Is this like when you have a baby and you just name it by weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. We're
almost 4 months.
Yeah. So we wrapped up week 15 of dev, and Levelhead is coming along very quickly. Yeah. And it's going to be far faster than anything would have done in Scuffle Buddies. But having that sort of distance from Scuffle Buddies allows us to kind of take a step back and think, are we going too in the weeds here? Are we following sort of dead alleys with our design? So there's a lot of, it's hard to make a game that's that involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing is you won't, especially on the deeper side of things, for bigger games, that's a hard thing. Cause if you think about your total lifespan for one thing, even if you, from the time you are a wee chid all the way up until you're dead at say 80, if one of these games takes 2 to 3 years to make, you actually don't get that many shots at it. Right.
Yeah. And then you're dead now.
And then you're dead now. So, and then if you consider that most people don't start making them, especially big games, until they're in their late 20s or 30s, then you actually don't get to make very many of these, which is why I think expertise on a bigger game scale is just not too hard, or it's harder to find than sort of small game scale.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about loot boxes.
Okay.
This is just a quick news item, which is
Loot Box Watch.
We've been talking for quite a while, at least a year, about the onslaught of loot boxes. And I think the first time we talked about it was when it appeared in Rocket League, where it used to be that in Rocket League, you could just buy skins, wheels, exploding.
Actually, no, you just bought cars and then you got the other stuff.
Oh, yeah, but you just buy a car and then you have a bunch of other stuff. And when that was the case, then I bought a few different cards because I'm like, I want to support this game.
I did
you could
also
buy the Batmobile, which is pretty.
I did buy the Batmobile.
They have like 3 different Batmobiles now.
Oh, do they?
Including the
Keep
Tumbler,
stacking them up.
the Dark Knight Tumbler,
I like that one.
which makes a lot of sense for Rocket League.
That's cool.
So back then I was very pumped about it, and I spent extra money on the game. And then they switched to a model where everything was loot boxes. So instead of being able to pick what you wanted, you had to just keep spending money over and over again and get randomized rewards. And it wasn't even a diminishing reward set where you could keep getting the same reward over and over and over again. Right. So it's not like your chances go up to get the thing that you want over time, which then this sort of infested the game with people trying to trade items with each other, and all this shit. And it just kind of made this weird sort of antagonistic feeling.
And I think I mentioned this before. League of Legends did the same thing.
Yeah.
Which was actually, the weird thing is I didn't consciously decide to stop playing the game around that time, but I did because I used to actually.
Yeah, I stopped playing Rocket League with
I used to actually buy the skins and stuff because I love the game. I loved buying like the super goofy stuff that they put out. But once it all kind of got, because you'd randomly get these key shards. So you'd get 3 different key shards that you'd put together, and you'd randomly get a box, and you could either buy boxes or keys, and then you put them together in a money pile, basically, to open the damn thing. And it would be just a random piece of shit, generally speaking, that you don't actually want.
So why do developers do this? Because
it's gambling, and gambling is a great way to make money.
Gambling is incredibly addictive. And even if when you buy a loot box and there's a 95% chance that you don't get anything really worthwhile, you still get something, which is a dopamine drip. You know, you get that satisfaction of surprise.
Yeah, well, I think the important note is actually that a lot of and this is one of the things that came down, as a Belgian commission that did it.
Belgium.
Yeah.
And the Netherlands, I think.
The Netherlands was first.
They basically said that, because of the sort of fireworks display that happens when you open these boxes. So if you look at Overwatch, when you open one of these boxes, it just explodes and the camera looks up and all these things flip around and land down on the ground. It's magnificent. And it resembles slot machine.
Well, if you think about slot machines have known payouts, and it's on average about -5 cents per dollar. So every dollar you put in, you make on average 95 cents back. And this is just known. And
it's designed that way very purposely because that means you win sometimes.
Right. Because people don't think in averages. People people remember things in spikes, right? They remember that one time when they pulled the lever and a bajillion coins came out. Yeah. So what do? They put those into a bucket, and then they go back to the slot machine and they just put each coin back in, one by one until the bucket's empty. And so, this creates kind of an addictive feedback loop, which is really bad for people. And it's especially bad for children who have even worse impulse control than adults do. And adults don't actually have that good of impulse control anyways. So this is something we've been talking about for quite a long time, in terms of anticipating that there's just going to be legislation coming.
And it happened. So Belgium sort of threw down the hammer with it. And I believe even basically we're vaguely threatening jail time.
Not vaguely. They said
there's a
if you
don't rip this out within a month or something.
There's a fine, and then there's up to 5 years in prison for the
that hits Overwatch, Dota. I think FIFA is even doing it too.
It's not
basically all of these huge PUBG.
They called out a specific set of games, but the law is the law doesn't apply to specific games. It applies to all games, right? So anybody who's selling games there is now subject to this. And there are a few things where they said, there's a few implementations of this that are definitely illegal as gambling. And then so it basically comes down to when people have the ability to trade items and stuff, then it's just like how you get money out of a slot machine and you can go use that money for other things, right? But then they said there's other implementations that, although technically not illegal, are unethical and morally dark.
Approximately all of it.
Yeah, I think. And to me that's a hint of get your shit together, folks, because it's coming. Right. This is just the tip. This is just the start of it.
So I hope everybody's prepared. We've been talking about this for a year. We called it a gray rhino. I think maybe last September or something. It's happening now.
Yeah, we're trying to eke out that last dollar.
Yeah.
So this is I was talking to my wife about this weekend because I was listening to a podcast about the tragedy of the commons. So the tragedy of the commons is a problem in economics when there's a common resource like water, whatever it is, maybe it's oil, something. So like, let's say there's a town that they discovered there's a big oil reserve under their town. And so everybody in the town's like, I'm gonna start drilling oil. Right. So they do it and they start kind of like pulling it up out of the ground. And it's a finite thing. It's going to run out at some point. Right. And if everybody just agreed, if they were like, we could really all benefit sort of collectively as a group if we sort of like ration
some rules.
Yeah.
Have some rules about using this thing.
And so like we could make this thing last for 3 generations if we wanted. As we know, that's not what happens, because in the case of a common resource, you end up with people always acting in their own self-interest over the interest of the group, because that's what a rational person does, is they do what's best for themselves, right? And so instead, there's a competition to see who can pull the quickest, who can pull the most out the quickest before everything just completely collapses.
And this is what happened to Star Wars Battlefront, which is actually that was the thing that sort of tipped it finally, where a lot of the legislators were like, hold the phone. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You guys are you're just scraping up the money from this in a really gross
way. So this is a tragedy of the commons where, there's this huge group of people willing to pay for loot boxes. There's this resource that all of a sudden all these huge game publishers discovered was there. And so they're all rushing to try to pull maximum money out as fast as possible before everything just completely collapses. Yeah. And so now it is, we were teetering on the brink, and now we're starting to tilt.
The unfortunate part about it is just the fact that there's certain implementations, just like we've talked about free to play before, whatever else, that actually work just fine and aren't abusive, in terms of like how these things sort of poke on gambling tendencies and stuff like that. And most of those models will get caught in whatever the sort of barrage is with this. So in other words, you have this development of a potential revenue stream that then, because it gets so sort of heinous, is going to be sort of shut off entirely, right?
Yep.
Which is the tragedy of the commons. It'll destroy that.
Yeah. If everybody had said, well, this loot box thing is cool, but it's not, we're not super comfortable with it, but we also understand that it makes a lot of money. So we're going to try to walk a middle ground. We're not going to make our loot boxes too crazy exciting, and we're going to use them very sparingly.
And we'll, publish exactly what the percentages are,
Yeah, we'll make it a very transparent process, but of course, that's not how you make the most money, right? And that's what the resource is that everybody's trying to pull out. So happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we talked about with free to play before, right? Where there's a way to be really successful financially with free to play, and it's gross. That's the way. That's how you do it.
Is for if you never putting a cap on how much money people can spend.
Yeah, if you want to actually behave with a very ethical business model where you're trying to cap how much a person can spend in your game and all this kind of stuff, you basically guarantee middle of the road or no success at all. And so to me, that's the kind of the interesting about this is that because of the push towards free to play and how the entire market shifted towards that, and then the loss of advertising money because ads started to make so little money, then basically this was kind of the next thing that had to be just milked dry. And it was gross the whole time. Just no question.
It just
right?
got grosser.
But it is the only way. I think the thing is that free to play is not a sustainable model, period. It just isn't. Because the only way for it to work is by having your customers be the product. Which is gross. GDPR is kicking in. That's going to make that even harder.
You mean it for advertising?
For advertising, right? Or whatever, selling people's data and so on. So either that has to go, so people have to sell their privacy, or you have to have a small subset of people have basically uncapped purchasing potential. So on average, you actually make some money. And that has to be then using some sort of gambling or other kind of addictive mechanism.
It doesn't have to, but it tends to.
Well, it's not. I mean, I think it does have to. I think the only way to make it so that on average you make a lot of money with a free to play title.
Well, I mean, you think about a game like Warframe, right? Like they don't do any of this nonsense. They just have a shitload of content, from what I understand about how their whole system.
A lot
works.
of IAPs. Yeah, but they don't make nearly as much money.
Oh no, that's even the thing that's been that was leveled at Riot a long time ago, probably before their loot boxes.
They have infinite money already.
Someone was like, if Riot implemented all these free to play practices, they would be making bank. It's like, yeah, but most of their consumer base would also hollow out and leave, probably.
That's referred to as churn, right? Which is when developers recognize that their business model actually antagonizes their customers. but their customers will stick around for a while because they're entrenched, you know, because it's their hobby or whatever.
With premium, you just turn people out before they even get in.
That's right.
People are like, I want to pay for this. You're like, great.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
Perfect.
Yeah, go play something else then. Yeah. And that's where we've kind of landed for ourselves personally is we like the premium model because people can decide whether they want the thing that we're selling. And if they don't, then that's it then. It's fine.
I don't mind DLC. I don't mind in purchases and stuff so long as just like, because I'm from playing League of Legends. I loved buying cool shit to put on my character, right?
I don't mind that stuff either.
Thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just if the avenue is weird to get to that particular point.
Well, I think those are mechanisms for sort of stuff. I think it works for League of Legends because that game has such a huge market.
Yeah, and it's a social thing too.
And it's a social thing, and people truly become entrenched in it because it's their hobby. So I think that works in that kind of a game. I think in most games it just doesn't work. At best, it provides a little bit of some percentage just improvement on top of your overall revenue of what you're getting. But I think the impact just isn't. It just can't be that great unless you get gross about it.
And this gets weird too because especially as a premium studio or as a studio who makes pay up front titles, and that's our intended business model going forward. And since our flagship product Crashlands is one of those titles, whenever we talk to especially business people in the games industry, we are just talking past each other just all fucking day long, right?
Most people are not interested in the way that we're doing things.
Yeah, because
it's the easiest way.
Yeah, because all they want to know, they have a bunch of acronyms. There's a bunch of acronyms that people use in free to play, which is like your ARPU, which is average revenue per paying user, and then you've got your DARPU, which is your daily average revenue per paying user. Because with one of those games, you're trying to get money from a player every day, not just have them buy your product, right? Your LTV, your lifetime value, like what's the maximum amount of money you can expect to quote extract from a consumer, like they're an oil well, and you're just shanking in. Yeah,
just a little weird.
Yeah, our number is the same for everybody, which is great. It's just the price.
People are like, what's your LTV? Or we're like, it's on there. It's the price.
Yeah, that minus 30%.
People buy that, and then it's it. That's it. It's done. Yeah. I don't know, but I think this is because of the tragedy of the commons situation. Whenever somebody finds a way to make money in games or just in business in general.
Look at the fucking cryptocurrency thing. Look at that. It's insane. Everybody
Which one?
in the mother
10,000 cryptocurrency.
Everyone in their mother now has launched their own cryptocurrency. They're like, oh, we're doing a token thing. I got an invite to some like LinkedIn competitor that's on the blockchain where you can earn tokens by posting content. I was like, what? I don't work for you.
I hate this.
What
I'm
the fuck?
leaving.
Leave me alone. It's insane.
Has this collapsed yet? Are people still doing it?
People are still doing it.
Okay.
Just what the fuck is happening?
And of course, it's all just absolute bullshit because blockchain had been around since like 2008, 2009, whenever Bitcoin first appeared. Nobody batted an eye until August of 2017 when Bitcoin suddenly passes $3,000. And everybody's like, what? And then everything just went to shit, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the way that these sort of like business models kind of burn themselves out. Yep. Is everything, like there's that argument ad absurdum, which is, the way you can sort of, one of the ways that you can attack an argument is by taking it to its most absurd logical extreme, like using its own terms and just being like, here's what this is going to look like if you apply this concept all the way to its logical endpoint. And this is how it always goes in business. Like as soon as somebody comes up with a model, you're like, well, if you do that, here's what's going to happen. And then that is what happens. Yep. So anyways, it's weird. The regulatory landscape is shifting though.
Yeah. Get ready. If you're a dev and you're making that stuff, get your shit together. 'Cause it's about to hit.
You're going to Belgian jail.
I mean,
it's probably pretty nice.
It's
probably fine. But if you are going to do that, if you're a dev, you want to put loot boxes in your game, and your game is not going to be out for a while. At minimum, just read what all these legislators are saying because they're giving you the blueprint for what it would have to look like to not be considered gambling. So just go look that kind of stuff up.
But also bearing in mind that
it could still change.
They're still not going to like it.
No, they're not going to like it.
If you follow the whole, like, don't make it feel like a slot machine, but it's still fine if it's gambling, sort of like weird gray area, I mean, you're still going to get trampled eventually, probably. So just maybe don't. Maybe just don't. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound good. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can hop into our Discord server at discord.gg/Bscotch and come say hello. And again, we have the Shenanijam coming June 8th. So if you go to shenanijam.com, that may or may not get you where you need to go. We'll find out. Also, if you'd like to adorn your body with Butterscotch merch, you can check out our shop, which is at shop.bscotch.net. Or if you'd like to send us something, we have a mailbox. So you can find the address for that over at mailbox.bscotch.net.
And that's true this time. Last time that was not true.
Yeah, that went down for a moment.
Yeah.
So it's been a rough web week. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.